my end. Welcome in, everybody. Another installation of the Gentleman's Code. Coming up on 1 year of the Gentleman's Code. I was just thinking that when I was typing in episode 43. I think we might have only missed maybe 1 or 2 weeks throughout the whole year, so we're pretty on pace for that. Once that's episode 52, that'll be our legitimate 1 year mark of the Gentleman's Code. So appreciate all the subscribers we got over the year, people that tuned into the show, but we got a long ways to go. Welcome in, Priamo. Good morning to you. Another great Wednesday. Good hot start to the week, but we're gonna finish off even stronger.
We're on fucking fire. And what is it? Wednesday, 8 a.m. The pillow huggers they're upset that we're back at a normally scheduled programming.
I missed it.
I thought they were going live at 6. I was gonna wake up at 4 and catch it. Fucking degenerates. No, we're live, baby. 8 a.m. Let's see how many we got. 3,000 live viewers. No, I'm kidding. But soon. Soon. Yeah, so the pillow huggers are going to catch this one late today. They're going to wake up to it. Oh, no. They fucking, no.
How could they do that to me?
Yeah. This is like that Drizzy line in, what song is it? I think it's War. No, it's not War. It's on Scorpion, the album Scorpion. And he has the one bar. He goes, something about 6 a.m. No, in the stew. Something about being in the studio at 6 a.m. He goes, all my haters.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah, all my haters are either on their way to work or they arrived.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I'm still in the studio at 6:45.
Yes.
My haters either on their way to work or they arrived.
Fucking bar. And I love that bar. Because it's true. I'm in the stew till 6:45. That's Can't Take a Joke. That's what it is.
I can't believe that album came out when we were in college. So underappreciated if we look back on it.
2018. That album is a banger. It's got bangers on there. Mm-hmm. Can't Take a Joke. Mob Ties. It had that, but it had also that fucking gay ass popular song. What was it called? Was that the one?
One Dance? Is it One Dance?
No, that was an older album. It was the one song that was a TikTok dance, I think, or not TikTok dance, but it was a dance. It was like, Kiki, do you love me?
Oh yeah,
that song. Yeah.
He's always got to drop a couple radio players on there though, like right. Nokia. Like Nokia's a banger.
Yep.
But it's just the radio. He's got to get a couple radio hits out there.
Yeah, he's a businessman. He understands. He can't have only fucking bangers for the gentleman. He's got to put something out for the honeys. Got to put something out for the radio hits, for the single moms driving to work. Yeah. How about another week of fucking incredible news?
Bro, you know what I was thinking? Why does every single time we do the show on Wednesday, I feel like everything pops off on Thursday, right after we do the show. So then we have like 5-6 days to not talk about it because
right.
Literally, like we filmed the show Wednesday afternoon, and then Wednesday night stuff started kicking off last week. Like they started firing at each other, so we always miss the breaking news.
They wait for us. They say, all right, the gentlemen go live on Wednesday. We can't have them expose us. we can't have them expose our tactics. So Thursday they start dropping bombs on Iran, and then we gotta wait till the next Thursday
to talk about it. Ridiculous.
Yeah. Oh, the gentlemen went live. Drop the bombs after the show.
But yeah, how about an incredible, crazy week of news? Just not what I was expecting. I mean, you could take it so many different ways, however you want to take it. I could tell you, majority of the people that I see online don't want to be involved. Obviously, it's such a tough situation because of the alliance and the friendliness of United States in Israel. So many different Jewish people intertwined into the American ecosystem and to the American government that as much as people want to say, we shouldn't be involved, it's like you can't help it. There's too many of these powerful Israeli Jewish people that live in America, that have influence in America, so they're going to protect their interests in Israel. As much as you think, it's not a good thing to get involved, it's like we really don't have a choice. And I don't think President Trump really wanted to do this. Per se, he's stressed over the years that Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon, and he said that plenty of times. But once Israel starts shooting rockets at them, it's like, okay, now we're actually involved, and now it's actually very serious. So his hands are tied. It's like you have to protect your allies, which Israel has been our allies since we pretty much created them, and that's a whole different rabbit hole. If the people that don't know the history of Israel, it's like we pretty much created them, the Rothschilds banking, and after World War II, the Palestinian state, and it's a whole rabbit hole you could go down that of why Israel is the United States ally and vice versa. So, yeah, it's a terrible situation. I think it's a lose lose lose. It's a triple lose for every country. Israel's going to get bombed, Iran's going to get bombed, and then the United States is going to have to be on hyper alert for terrorist attacks and things like that. And we're going to have to spend money and military power there. So, I think it's a triple lose. The only people that might come out okay are the people who live in Iran and who don't like that Islamic regime. That might come out. Maybe it'll be more of a democratic process after we wipe out the whole
Yeah.
government.
Yeah.
So maybe they're the winners in the long run. But for us, it's a bad situation.
That's the best part about Americans, right? Oh, we need more democracy. So let's completely overthrow the current regime without a vote from the people. We'll just decide for them what they need to put in the system that lets them decide what they need. I mean, fucking genius, right? Fucking democracy, baby. So, yeah, it's a couple of things, right? The first one is I still don't have the answer as to why we care so much about Israel. Still haven't had anybody really actually line it out for me. Okay, here's why we're so closely allied to the Israelis. Here's why we need to defend them in their project in the Middle East. Here's why we got to support them in this war in Iran. I still haven't gotten a clear answer. Why? I don't understand. I still don't know. Now I could speculate,
Hmm.
right? Something I heard, and we can double check to confirm, was uh, Israel developed a lot of the most advanced spy technology software, like Pegasus. Do you know what Pegasus is?
That's the stuff where it could get on people's phones, right? It could give them full access to their phones, I believe.
Yeah, so it's basically the most advanced. Well, here's the other thing too. It's the most advanced spy software that we know of. Because
Well, isn't that what Edward Snowden like whistleblowed? Isn't that why he got like exiled? Because he is the one who whistleblowed that software?
I don't think it was Pegasus, but he was whistleblowing that the CIA and the U.S. government was spying on U.S. citizens without their permission. Let's look at Pegasus real quick.
I thought he had something to do with that.
Who developed
But
Pegasus?
yeah, so I mean that that's the whole thing. There's so many rabbit holes that this could go down. A lot of people even are speculating the Epstein stuff because they believe that Epstein was a Mossad agent, was blackmailing American politicians and these types of people for the Israeli government. Um, and now now they ran on releasing the Epstein list, and now they're and then
And
Cash
they're
Patel
not.
goes on there and they're like, "Oh, we gave you everything we had." It's like now they're not releasing it, and then they start going to war. It's like nothing makes sense. Nothing makes sense around it.
Oh yeah, they lost me. I looked it up. Pegasus was developed by the Israelis. So think about that. The most advanced, unstoppable, can't do anything about it, can go on anybody's phone. There's literally no way to stop it. They have this spy software. Well, so what do you think the Israelis could do to these politicians, like you just said? Put it on their phones, track them, spy them, get information, nefarious information that doesn't want to be released out to the public. Oh, now they got them in their back pocket, right?
Blackmailed, yep.
So it's they clearly have something over the head of these politicians and these people because like you said, Pumpeen, they run on the fact that we're not doing war, no more forever wars, we're stopping all these wars, and then we're what, 6 months in, boom, war with Iran. I thought it was no more. What? Ukraine Russia war still going, and I love Tucker Carlson. That dude, he's standing on business. He is not. He is not just going with the regime and supporting Trump de facto and not critic. He's pissed about Iran. I don't know if you've seen some of the interviews he's done. The one he did with Ted Cruz from
Yeah,
Texas.
that came out last night, right?
Yeah,
I saw clips.
Tucker is torching them because he said, Why are we going to war with Iran? You said we're not going to go to war with Iran. You said we're going to stop this conflict. So now he's fucking firing. He's pissed. And I love it because he's actually staying consistent with his point of view of, well, why are we fighting these wars? Why?
Hmm.
I thought we were going
Yeah,
to stop this.
that's the majority of the people's views. And you don't, and remember we talked about it like a couple episodes ago, the left wing media versus the right wing media, and we were saying how the left wing media is very biased and very propagandized. Well, in times like this, when there's wars and things like that, you see how the right side is propagandized because now you see people on Fox News and people on the right calling for this war now. People like Ted Cruz, people like Sean Hannity was on how he wants to do all these military actions inside Iran. So now you start to see where the right side becomes propagandized and they want you to go and fight these wars. Same thing with the Bush administration, same thing with the war in Iraq, right? So if you guys know history and you know of what has happened in the early 2000s after 9/11 and the war on terror, it's the same thing. It's history is repeating itself right before our eyes. It's after 9/11, Benjamin Netanyahu went in front of Congress and said that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. Convinced the president of the United States, George W. Bush, at the time, who was in a very vulnerable position after 9/11. I don't blame him. He was probably flustered, didn't know what to do, honestly, and he invaded Iraq. If you guys look at a map, here's Iraq, here's Iran. They're neighbors. They're right next to each other. Um, Turns out, and Trump was very critical of them back then. He said that they went into Iraq, they had no proof of mass destruction weapons, and they went in anyway. 25 years later, here we are. Benjamin Netanyahu is telling the president of the United States that Iran has nuclear weapons of mass destruction, and we're following them right into the neighbor country. So nothing has changed. It's the same thing, and I forget what the talking point was. Oh, it was, Tucker Carlson. It's his point has not changed because these things have not changed. It's the same thing as when we did that with Iraq. Now we're doing it with Iran. We got a subscriber on Twitch. Welcome in, everyone. So it's crazy, and Tucker is not letting them up. And I hope that other people stand up like that too and say that, hey, we don't need this, we don't want this. But obviously, it's more complex from a military perspective. They have to provide weapons, provide things, and it's very complex.
So the reason I kept, which all good points, I'll comment those on a second. The reason I kept smiling is every time you said weapon of mass destruction, I kept thinking to myself, I got a weapon of ass destruction. They're gonna fucking invade me next. Because I'll fucking destroying these Latinas. Oh my. But the point. The point with the Iraq war, yeah, that's what Tucker keeps saying too, and the reason he won't change his point of view on Iran is he has publicly said how he rescinds his comments about Iraq, understands he was wrong about Iraq, was wrong about wanting to go fight that war because he was lied to from the information that they gave him. They said they got weapons of mass destruction, they got this, that, and the third, blah, 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 blah. All right, let's go to war. It was all fugazi, fake, forever wars, etc. Now he detests it. Like you said, it's the same shit they're doing with Iran. It's the same thing. So, yeah, it's if these countries want to get into these wars, why are we involved? Why? I understand we have interests there. I understand we want to make money in the Middle East. That could be another thing too. It could be where, like we were talking about the one episode, they just so desperately want to be able to do business in the Middle East because there's so much money there.
Hmm.
They have to overthrow these regimes that are not consistent with the vision of democracy in the Middle
Yeah, and the
East.
Western values, Western companies, Western technology, all of that. Yeah.
And so they can't get insurance for the businesses. They can't build out there. They can't do these things because these companies won't insure these businesses or data centers or AI because it's so dangerous from the war. So they want to overthrow these regimes, put in their democracies, their democracies, and make it a place where you can do business there. That could be it too, right?
Iran's a country of 95 million people. It's about a third of the size of the United States. It's a lot of capital.
It's a ton of
And
people.
in the first Trump administration, they decimated the economy with sanctions and inflation of their currency. So like their currency isn't worth anything. So if they go in, get a new government, new currency evaluation, they back it up. Who knows? They'll slap some Bitcoin on it, like throw some Bitcoin in a wallet. That's our new reserve, right? So who knows what they're gonna, what they're gonna do and what their game plan is. But what I think the real thing is still the projection of power from an American standpoint. That's why we are going to back them because they're Israel's our only pretty much straight ally there. You could say Saudi Arabia is our ally too, but not like directly. There's like I don't think there's any agreements really like us and Israel. Like I think Israel's part of NATO as well, so they're the only NATO country there. Um, so from a power perspective, Israel buys all of our F-15s, they buy our 30 F-35s, they buy our missiles, they buy all this stuff. So it's like a little proxy. It's a you could use it to get an agenda across when need be. I don't think that's the case. I think Israel is acting on their own, and now we're just coming in and having to clean up their mess. Personally, that's what I think. But I think from a power perspective, like you're talking about, all these other countries need influence and they want a democracy, and that's what Israel does for the United States out there.
So the question is what's Israel trying to get out of this, right? Because they're playing it as they had to do it for safety, right? From Iran, which it makes sense too, because if you look at the history of the region, right? You could look back as early as the 1920s or 1940s, whenever they established Israel. You could look back to the Crusades, right? You could look back to the one movie. What's the name of the movie? It's about the Leopard King. What the fuck is the name of that movie? Do you know what movie I'm talking about? Where they had the Leopard King. He basically heads a Christian army that defeats Saladin and the Muslim army that was coming to take Jerusalem when Jerusalem was under Christian rule.
I'm not sure.
It's a great movie. But it's about it's a Christian. It's a movie about how the Christians defended Jerusalem, the Holy Land. So, anyways, my point with this, where I'm going with it, is this region has been under war and regime change, if you will, for many, 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 many centuries, right? This is why it's not something to get involved in, because it's something that's never going to end. Jerusalem, the Holy Land, is going to continue to try to get fought over and fought for by the Jews, the Christians, and the Muslims, because all three of us have interests in that Holy Land. All three religions come from that Holy Land, right? So the war is never going to stop. At some points, it's been under Muslim rule, Christian rule. Now it's under Jewish rule with Israel. So it's like, how do you even solve a conflict like that where it's religion based? Because religion is that one thing where once you believe it, you can't be wrong, because how could you believe in your religion if the religion's wrong? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So all of them believe that, no, this is ours. Now the Christians have come to think that the Jews can have it, though, which is interesting, because Christianity is just basically the evolution of Judaism, where we just now believe that the Savior had come, which is Jesus. But we still have the same Jewish Old Testament. So I think that's why Christians have come to say, oh yeah, the Jews should have Israel and Jerusalem.
Hmm.
But yeah, I'm just thinking out loud. How do you resolve this? Because they're never going to stop. Everybody's going to want Israel. Everybody's going to want Jerusalem, the Holy Land.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult problem. Like you said, they've been fighting over for years. There's a few few messages in the chat. So did I understand correctly, or did you just say that Israel's trying to bring democracy to the Middle East? No, I did air quotes around democracy, first of all. That's that was democracy. But I think they're not going to directly say that. Like Paramo said, they're covering it as this is a defensive measure. They're going to have weapons and they could destroy us with one nuke. But I think, they're obviously trying to overthrow the government for some purpose, which like we're saying could bring more Western ideas or more whatever you want to call it. Maybe they will hold elections. That would be bringing democracy, right, to the Middle East if they actually held elections and things like that. But someone said, I'm not going to say that one. But yeah, I mean, I don't. I'm
What?
not. That someone commented, Pramo hates Jews. That's not true. That's not true. But I don't think, no, I did not say that Israel's trying to bring democracy to the Middle East. First of all, it's air quotes democracy, and I don't think that's what's happening, but that's just speculation of what, could happen in the future.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not. They're not trying to bring democracy. They don't care about democracy. It's not about democracy.
No.
It's keeping themselves safe while also expanding the territory of Israel. So I mean, and that's not to hate. That's just what's happening, right? If you go back and study the history of how Israel was founded by the Zionists, and how it was made official or officially recognized after World War II, you would know what the vision of Israel is, right? The whole vision of Israel was just to create a Jewish state, so a Jewish homeland, because for so much of history, the Jews had been discriminated against, treated poorly. They basically couldn't find a home within any of the countries in which they were, which makes sense because, for example, in Russia, they were called pogroms. I believe it's pronounced that way, pogroms, where people would literally just go out and start these riots where specifically they would go out to beat up and kill and rape Jews, which is awful, obviously. So it was things like this that caused them to have to move throughout Europe and move western towards England. And a lot of these Zionists were in England before Israel had actually been settled. And then that's where this idea came from of, well, we need a homeland. We need our own country where it's primarily Jewish so we can have a safe, good place to be, right? Which makes sense. Sounds good. The issue is that when they got there, there was already a bunch of Muslims living there.
That's a whole nother issue. I already know where you're going with this.
Yeah. So then they get there and they said, oh, yeah, you guys can't be here anymore, even though they were already there, right? So I'm not saying who's right or wrong. I'm just telling you what happened. So you can understand when you actually look at the history of how this place was settled, you understand why Jewish people wanted to settle there. It makes sense. They want to have their own homeland, their own nation where they're not going to be discriminated against. 100% makes sense. And then I also understand the Muslims because they were there before they got there, already living there. And then they got pushed out and fucking thrown to the side when they showed up. So I understand why both sides are saying, well, what the fuck? Right?
And across all that time when that was happening, and once, eventually the Palestinians were kicked out, and I wouldn't say every, but majority of the presidents, I think starting with maybe John F. Kennedy in the 50s, was an ally. So they were providing them with military support, providing them with weapons over the years, providing them with Western technology, all these types of things that has evolved and snowballed into what it is today. Another comment here. I do believe a pro mobile and what's up, fellas? We got a lot of people in the chat this morning. I do believe that wars and all that stuff happens because of governments and mindless fanatics who support them blindly. This is per Simmons 771, by the way. Because saying you're a Muslim and you want this, or you're a Christian, you want this, is kind of wrong. Well, yeah, it's all the governments, but I don't, whenever I say whenever as I don't know, Prama, I don't want to speak for you, but whenever I say things like they do this or they do that, I'm talking about the government. Not talking about the people of that country because the people of that country have no control over what the military does, per se. It's the people in charge, it's the government. Same in this case, right? You could say the United States this, United States that. It's not the United States people, it's the government, and it's the Israeli government, vice versa. So, and I'm not classifying Muslims or Christians going at it either. That's not the case. It's the governments, and there's different religions inside of the government, so that's not true either. But yeah, you're right in terms of the background of what it was and how they got there. Has a huge, huge part of still what's going on today, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. The history of this place, of what has been fought over for so many years, is still being fought over to this day. Now it's just hyper modern, hyper new technology. but ideologically still differences that they're trying to hash out.
Right. Yeah, it's not that the religions itself are warring, like you said. It's that's the premise that's used by the governments, right? That's the mindset behind it. It's, oh, we were given this holy land by our God, therefore it's ours. So that's why we're here to take it. And then of course the Muslims have their perspective. So that's just the premise behind it. Of course, like Bobby said, whatever, let's say, the U.S., if they do go to war with Iran, it's not the American people that said, "Oh, we're going to war with Iran," because me and Bobby don't want to go. None of the people want to go to war. That's the other thing too. We talk about democracy, right? The West always talks about democracy, the vote, it's your choice, the people's choice, etc. More than 50% of people in the U.S. don't want to be in any of these wars. So if it was truly democratic, then why are we in these wars? Well, the argument would be, well, we have to be in them for our own security, our own national security, to be able to preserve our nation in the way that we live. Okay, fair argument. But where's the proof in that? The issue with that argument is now it's we have to put faith in the leadership and in the intelligence agencies to always operate out of our best interest. But that's just not the case. So that's the problem with using that. The problem with using that as the reason we have to go to these wars is because we don't know whether or not we can believe them on if that's really the case, right? So where's the check? So what I'm trying to think out loud is, how do you check that power to be able to say we're going to go to war without asking the American people, with the rationale being you wouldn't know because you don't have the intelligence that we have, but we need to do this for national security? Well, how can we trust you that that's the
Yeah.
case?
It's the age-old question. I'm sure they had the same questions during World War II because, they don't have the information that we have now. So they're probably thinking like, what's going on in Germany, back in the late 1930s, early 1940s. They'd have less information about that than we do about this now. So, yeah, it's a good question, and that I would say that's what the government would say, right, is to protect our interest. And one of the things is you have to understand the vast intelligence community, like the CIA, is embedded in every part of industry, food and technology. And, there's definitely some smart Israelis that are involved in that. And, with Mossad and CIA, there's a vast web of intelligence communities that understands what's going on and they report back, right? And that's what the United States will use to go on operations to, overthrow governments or whatever it is, wartime. So they have information that we definitely don't have. So they take that information and do what they will with it. If they think they have intelligence that, there's a nuclear bomb in Iran and they want to go and take it out, that's what they want to do. I'm not saying it's right, but I'm just saying there is information that flows around these communities and these intelligence communities that's how they base they base what they're going to do. That's how they base their actions off of. So like you're saying, that's what they're going to say. That's what they're going to use.
So, so the other aspect of this that I was thinking about too is what wars actually got support from the American people and how did they play out? So for World War II, right, that's a war where pretty much universally is regarded as a war we had to be involved with. And it was right for us to go to war and end that war. Now, that's not the case with the Vietnam War. That's not the case with the Iraq War. That's not the case with any war since World War II, right? I don't know any other war where the American people say, "Oh yeah, that was worth it. We should have been there. It was good that we did that." The last one was World War II. Well, what happened in World War II that made us get pulled into the war? We were actually attacked first at Pearl Harbor.
Hmm.
That's why I got the support of the American people, because American people actually were targeted, killed on our soil, right?
Yep.
So that makes sense. So every other war We were the antagonizer where we went out and went and found the war, right? And those wars weren't supported by the American people because our mindset is, why are we there? What are we doing?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if you look at the problems that the country has with housing crisis and homelessness and drugs, right? You can't blame Iran for that. It's like, oh, if you went to some guy in Arkansas right now in the trailer park and asked them, what's wrong? Like, how come you can't get a job? How come you can't pay your bills or this? What do you think his answer is going to be? It's not good. It's not going to be anything to have to do with the Middle East. It's going to be, I did this. I broke my leg. I couldn't get good health insurance. Couldn't get coverage. Now I'm on disability. The disability checks don't come. It's always going to be something that happens here. That's what we need to focus on, and that's what we need to fix. It's not endless wars in places that we don't even know what the culture's like. I bet you 99% of Americans never even been there. So that's what the problems are. It's
That point about 99% of Americans haven't been there, as similar to the point that Tucker was trying to make with Ted Cruz. If you saw the clip where he asked Ted Cruz, well, what's the population of Iran? Well, I don't know. Okay, well, what's the ethnic diversity? Oh, Tucker, but he has a point, right? Because he has a point because you're going in there to overthrow their government, decide what way of life that these people should live under or what type of government they should live under without knowing who the actual people are and what the culture is and what their religions are, or what they believe in. How would you decide for them if you don't know who these people are or how they live, right? So it's ignorant to try to decide how other people are going to live their life when you would never accept that in the U.S., where we would say, "Oh, you can't tell me how I have to live my life. We're all about freedom, right?" Well, how are you going to go and decide how a government in another country is going to be run when you don't even know how the people think or what they want or how they live? Because just because they don't live like Americans doesn't mean they're wrong, right? People talk about Sharia law as if it's the most insane thing ever, blah 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 blah, because these women wear burqas and shit like that. Maybe that's the better way to live. Who knows, right? Listen, there are some things in Sharia law where I'm like, man, I like that. Makes sense to me, right? And we think because Americans are the most liberal fucking people on the planet that everything we do is right. No, there are Americans who think abortion's good. There are Americans who think that being gay is fire.
fire.
Fire. They're like, dude, you're gay? That's sick. Trust me, we have our problems too. We don't think the best. The liberalism, pure liberalism is not good. Bro, imagine thinking being gay is good. That's good? You think that's good? Better than being straight? So it's to test in all major religions are against people being gay. All major religions that have been around for thousands of years. So that's probably not a fluke. So they detest being gay. Being gay means you can't have kids or help repopulate the earth or give anything back to the world or society from that perspective. That doesn't sound good to me. And we can throw abortion in there too. How the fuck is abortion good? Anyways, so my point is we're not perfect. We haven't figured all these things out yet either. So how are we going to condemn another nation or another way of life and say, oh, you're not allowed to live like that. You're not allowed to live under Sharia law. You're not allowed to da da da. Who the fuck are we to tell them?
Well, that's the whole point, right? Is that people are going to say, um, that's why we shouldn't be involved at all. Like who cares? Like, why are we getting involved? Let them
Let
figure it
them
out.
figure it out. Yeah.
Yeah. So
These
that's where
are
I stand.
these are human beings too. They can think for themselves too. They can figure it out. Let them work it out what they want to do. Right?
So I think the
What's the chat saying over there? I keep seeing you fucking looking at that chat. What are they what are they
we got
saying
the
over there?
TML fan. We got Pro Moblin in here. TML fan says he's unsubscribing because Priamo is tripping, uh, and Priamo's trolling. Go get your. Priamo talks smack and has no kids of his own. Priamo won't respond to this.
What does the kids have to do with anything?
Say he is just saying because you said gay people can't have kids, but you don't have any kids yourself. So
Yeah, but I will. No, anyways, have him
Um,
tell what's his who was it who said that?
TML fan.
TML fan. So TML fan, give me the rationale to why being gay is good. How's that a net positive for society? And we'll let him respond.
I want to know who this is because
He's not unsubscribing because he was on. He was saying something about last episode because I said that why would you vote for politicians who don't have children or don't want to have children or can't have children because they're gay? And he goes, well, you don't have any kids. I said, yeah, but I didn't tell you to vote for me. I said, vote for people who do. That has nothing to do with me not having kids. No, we'll give him a second.
yeah, we'll give him a
I just
second.
want to see how he rationalize more gay people being a good thing. Because it's not. We're already under a population collapse. On top of the fact that we're under a population collapse across the Western world where our nations are not even going to exist anymore as is. And we still want to be more gay and have less kids and more abortions and have less kids. Great idea. Great idea. Great way to have your society persist into millennia and go across the solar system and observe other galaxies. Yeah, great way. Let's just kill our people and not have more kids. Great idea.
You're right. Population collapse, one of the greatest things, one of the greatest threats to humanization that we have.
Yeah. And that's not fake. That's real. Just go look at it. You need to have 2.1 children per family to be able to sustain. Just sustain. Excuse me. Sustain. It's fucking sparkling. Jeez.
What kind of sparkling you got there? I've been checking that.
Rough.
Oh, the Perrier,
Ultimate. I bought it because it says ultimate on it.
the ultimate
The
professional.
ultimate professional fucking sparkling. But with the what were you saying? Population collapse. Oh yeah, 2.1 children. I just told this to a girl the other day. I went on a date with. I asked her. I go, because this is always a question I ask girls on the first date. How many kids do you want to have? She goes, no more than two. Instantly, I'm like, what? Two? She goes, well, yeah, it's a lot of work. And I go, Bobby. I tell her, I'm not going to be a part of the problem as to why. Why? What did he say? What did he say?
No, I'm listening to you.
Okay,
I'm listening to
okay.
you.
I go, I'm not going to be a part of the problem as to why the population collapses. You have to have 2.1 children per family to be able to sustain the population. So I said, obviously you can't have 2.1 kids, so you got to have 3 if you want to help. So I go, it's got to be at least 3. And she goes, no, I'm not doing more than 2. And I go, okay, well then that means you're having 2, but I'm having more with other women, just so you know. And by the way, she still talks to me, loves me, even after saying that. She's gonna cook me food this week. But which another side note for you gentlemen, just be honest instead of being a pussy and yes manning everything a girl says and thinking that's gonna help you get laid. I don't give a fuck. You want 2 kids, you're out of your fucking mind. You're gonna have 2 kids. If you're having 2 kids, I'm having multiple wives. That is a fact. Because I'm not having 2 kids. You might be having 2 kids, but I'm not having 2 kids. So you figure out that math. I'm having kids with somebody else then. Because I'm not going to be a part of the problem. What was the point I was making with her? Oh, yeah. So I'm like, if you have 2 kids or less, you're leaving this earth with less than what was given to you in the sense that I'm here. I was born. I had the opportunity to have life and live and take the resources from this planet, etc. Well, I'm going to do my job and at least give back a little bit more than what I came with. So I'm going to give 3 kids minimum, right? Now, me personally, I'll have 15. But
He said tough guy has no kids.
give me a second, Harry. Jeez.
9 months at a time. 9 months at a time.
They're slow. Yeah, give me some time. Fucking, what's his name? BMF fan?
TML fan.
TML, too much loser. TML, give me a second, brother. Give me a second. I'll have kids. Don't worry. But that was my point to her. I told her, I said, there's just no way I'm having 2 kids. It's impossible. So if you want 2 kids, then I'm having 3 wives.
So I think there's a long way to go in this conflict that will eventually be sorted out in some ways, hopefully without military power and projection and boots on the ground and that kind of stuff. I hope we don't get to that point. I don't think we will. I think it still has to do with a lot of the global reordering of economics and like we talked about AI inside of the economy of people being able to have AI agents out there working for them, and you're going to have opportunities for countries like that to adopt into new currencies and adopt into new working strategies that they're going to be brought along and hopefully for the greater of their company or for their country, maybe better than it is now, maybe not, who knows. But in terms of what we're seeing, I hopefully think it'll be hashed out soon and reorder will be installed. And um, I think they should just buy Bitcoin and they could set themselves apart for some other countries in the Middle East, which I'm sure they do. I'm sure they're involved somehow, but that's the thing. That's the problem. There's no transparency with some of these countries. So we don't know what they have. They don't ever release anything related to military, to currency, to finance, or anything like that. So it's tough to understand where they're at because of the lack of the transparency that they provide to us. So that's why I think there's a lot of it has to be spies, there has to be agencies going in military action because we just don't know.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of nations that are accumulating that probably don't have it on their actual public books. China is another great example where you can't trust the numbers that China gives you in terms of how much gold they've accumulated over the last couple of years, because they've been hedging against the collapse of the U.S. dollar because they're the biggest holder of U.S. Treasury bonds, U.S. debt. So if the U.S. dollar collapses, they're fucked because then all these Treasury bonds that they hold are worthless. So they've been one of the biggest importers of gold. So BRICS, pretty much: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Anyways, so my point is that China's not telling you how much gold they're bringing in. These Middle Eastern countries, the wealth that some of these nations have there, and some of these princes and sheiks and these royal families in the Middle East, the wealth that they have is so astronomical and also not reported because they don't have to, like you have to in the US. The only reason Forbes exists in the US is because, to a degree, these billionaires, their wealth is public because you can find out on a publicly traded company how many shares they own, the percentage, what is the total value of those shares. And then, because this is all has to be public to be traded on the stock exchange. We have regulation, we have these things that keep things transparent. So that's why we can tell kind of how rich a billionaire is. But Forbes can't figure out how much the Saudi prince has because he doesn't have stock because he owns a company. He's fucking rich because he has so much oil under his territory, under his soil, or in his ocean that he has access to that's worth trillions of dollars. So the wealth for these people are astronomical, and the reason you don't see them as the richest person in the world is because there's no way to track their wealth. You don't know. I think Elon's actually said this before too, because they say he's the richest man in the world. He's not. He's the richest publicly known person in the world, but he's not the richest. Fuck no. No.
Yeah, because they have all that oil under their land, but they got to drill for it through a company, and then they probably take them. Well, they probably own some of the companies as well, so they
Oh
have a
yeah.
share in all of that. And but yeah, their true wealth is measured in their land. First of all, they own the land, so it's that's right there is there's not a price tag on that. And then yeah, plus the oil and owning different shell companies right there. Yeah, it's impossible for them to know. But yeah, in terms of transparency, like guys like Elon and guys like Bezos, we've know what they built, and there's shareholders, and there's value in that in different ways than other people around the world. And it's the same for every other country. There's oligarchs and there's people that are taking money in from different places that we don't know where the money's coming from.
It's a good point too. Russian oligarchs are not publicly showing how much money they have.
Yeah, because they own oil companies as well out of Russia, and they're siphoning profit from there and goes into a shell bank account that's owned in a different country, and then just sits there, accruing interest. But um, yeah, we'll never know. But yeah, but guys like Elon, we know what they build, and we know then it gets publicly traded, and then we could track the value of it. It's going to be a long time until hopefully a lot of these countries catch up in terms of Bitcoin, because we first of all we want to buy all the Bitcoin and buy all the cryptocurrencies until it inflates into a value point where then people could start getting involved and will already be exited out.
Speaking of crypto, Circle, the IPO, did you see that?
Yeah, the USDC
Yep.
company.
Yep. So I'm actually gonna pull up the chart just so I can see it on my end. But anyways, Circle. First of all, I'll give you guys a stock pick. Buy fucking Circle, because Circle is going to perform incredibly well. So here we go. Circle stock. Where is it at? New York Stock Exchange. Circle Internet Group. Cool. Yeah, just IPO'd on June 5th, right? And fucking's gone vertical since then. So it IPO'd at $69. It is now over a 2x, almost a 3x right now.
In 1 week,
Yep. Uh, yeah,
week and a
like a
half.
week and a half. Yeah. So already doubled if you bought the IPO. So the reason I was bringing this up is Circle, like you said, is a stablecoin issuer, USDC stablecoin, second largest stablecoin in the world behind Tether. Why is this important? The U.S. government is currently passing legislation to put up a regulatory framework for these stablecoins and put the U.S. government in position to be able to hold and own these stablecoins, right? Again, as somebody who's trying to make money, you're in business, you want to stay ahead of the curve, you want to enrich yourself and your family. These are the things you have to pay attention to. Did you know about Circle IPOing? Do you know about this? You didn't. You're losing. I knew about it. Bobby knows about it. This is why we were positioned beforehand. What the US government is doing right now is for the next 4 years going to create an environment where crypto is going to perform so well in the long run that you would be remiss, you would be a fool to not take advantage of the opportunity now before everybody else starts piling in to then print over a long enough time frame. Might not happen next month, might not happen in 3 months, but in the next year, 3 years, 4 years, like look at what they're doing. They're putting all the framework in place to be able to blow this marketplace up so then they can switch the monetary system over to a stable coin, over to a stablecoin system. Why does the government want to do this? Because these stablecoin issuers are now becoming the largest holders of U.S. debt, U.S. Treasury bonds. So Trump, intelligent, understands that, well, we want to promote these stablecoins. We want to release these stablecoins, allow BlackRock to make them, allow these other large companies to make them, because they're going to be buying all these U.S. Treasury bonds, which allows our government to operate. That's why they're doing it. So I'm giving you game and saying, well, if this is what's happening, why are you not taking advantage of the opportunity now before everybody else is forced to what's it called? Assimilate to the system? Because everybody eventually is going to get forced to do it. You don't want to wait until you're forced to do it to do something. You want to do it now, understanding that 1%, 2% of the fucking world population is invested in cryptocurrency. Let me position now so then when the other even 50% show up, I'm fucking printing off of the liquidity that comes into those markets. So
Yeah, that was one thing that you told me that I did not know is when we were last talking about Circle and some of these other companies that issue stable coins, you asked me like, what do they back the coin with? And I'm like, it's a good question. I don't know. And then you said the U.S. Treasury bonds, and then it made total sense because obviously they're going to take the treasury bonds that they buy from the United States government and back the coin with it. So that way it's pegged together and then you actually have a dollar coin. And it's going to be the same as paper currency, as opposed to just being able to have a dollar, that you could go to the store with and pay at the cash register. Now your dollar is pegged via a USDC coin, just on your computer, on your wallet, wherever you have it stored. And then that's like Priamo saying is that's where the real value is going to come in because now you can invest in all these other assets and then you have an easy way to transcribe that and actually get money back to yourself that you could use. And one of the underrated things that I even saw MetaMask is doing it now on beta is you could get a card. You could get a card issued on MetaMask now. You could do it on Coinbase. I have the Coinbase one as well. And you're going to start seeing these more pop up. So now you could just go to the store. You have some USDC sitting in your wallet. You can just swipe it, use it. Boom, boom. You even get I think cash back, but USD back when you use it via your Coinbase card. So you get like 3% back with Bitcoin. So every time you do a $100 purchase, you get $3 in Bitcoin. So it's like they're adding all these incentives everywhere for you to start using this stuff, and you have to take advantage of it. The card is a game changer because now you could actually, instead of sending money out of your wallet and going, to USDC and then withdrawing it to your bank. Now you could just keep it on the exchange. You don't even have to take it out. So there's game changers popping up all over the place. And the big thing is, like Priam was saying, is this Circle company and other companies that are going to start doing it. Do you know who owns Tether?
Uh, Individually, no, but the company is Tether itself. It's just
Oh, that is the company.
yeah, 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 yeah.
And they're doing the same thing. They're backing it via treasury bonds.
Yeah,
Um,
Tether was the first one to do it.
yeah. So, yeah, interesting times. And that's why we're doing this is to stay ahead of the curve and still be the leading dominant currency in the world. Right now, the United States dollar is. But as things change, and we've seen rapidly how things could change from war and other things and economic policies, and China is trying to keep up as well, Russia. You have to think ahead of the game, and this is their plan to keep the United States dollar in power as the world reserve currency.
And again, that's why it's smart because Trump and this administration understand that if we lose the world reserve currency, the U.S. It collapses. The government collapses. That's what people don't understand too. This is why the Elon was so big about trying to bring down the national debt and stop raising the debt ceiling and start to pay down these debts and start to get out of debt. Is if and when, because eventually every empire has had the loss of their world reserve currency status. I showed you, I think we did it on stream where I showed the diagram of each empire over the last 500-600 years and how long they've held world reserve currency status before losing it.
Yeah, usually about like 80 to 90 years.
Yep. And we're already extended past that. We're at the tail end of it, right? As soon as we lose the world reserve currency status, cooked. 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 Why? How's the US government funded? Treasury bonds. Who buy treasury bonds? Our trade partners, because we're always in trade deficit. So China, India, all these fucking people who buy our treasury bonds, the reason they buy them is because when we do trade with these countries, the US sends them money. The US dollar is inflationary. So if they just held it in a bank account, they're losing value. These nations know that. So what do they do with the US dollars that they get in surplus from the US? They go buy treasury bonds, earn a yield off of that money. That's why they do it. Okay. Well, if the US loses world reserve currency status, nobody's going to want to hold these treasury bonds anymore because it's not the reserve currency anymore. So they're going to start buying whose bonds? The new world reserve currency. Or maybe it doesn't even work that way and the world reserve currency just becomes fucking Bitcoin or gold, or, whatever it may be. And that's just what they hold instead. But the point being is as soon as these nations are not incentivized to hold and buy more treasury bonds, we're cooked because that's how the government is funded. So then now we still have the debt. We still have to pay off the debt. And now we don't have the revenue coming in from these treasury bonds. We're cooked. It's cooked.
Well, that's why it's so important to understand the new asset class in terms of cryptocurrency will continue to grow and hopefully can pay some of the debt down with the value that's going to be brought in from other countries buying into these coins and buying into these assets that we own. That's why I'm saying it's the Bitcoin race. That's why you see companies like MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor buying as much as humanly possible because they know what the value is going to be in 10 to 20 years. It's going to be significantly more, depending on who you ask. It could be. And I believe after the last Bitcoin halving, which I believe is, was it 2050 something, or is it about 100 years? I don't remember. I haven't checked that chart in a while. But there's a lot. So there's a couple more Bitcoin halvings left, and every single time that happens, the supply becomes less and less and less, and before you know it, the demand is going to go way up over the supply line, and you're not going to be able to buy a Bitcoin for 200,000 anymore, 300,000 anymore. It's going to be up. I think I've seen a number of like 1.5 million is where after the Bitcoin halving is where they could see the price going. Um, so yeah, I mean, it's crazy as the US dollar inflates as well. That is also going to increase the price of Bitcoin just because more dollars is going to take to buy one Bitcoin. right? It's basic math. If you have more and more dollars being printed every year, it's going to cost more and more dollars to buy one Bitcoin because more Bitcoins aren't being created. It's the
Mm-hmm.
same with cars. It's the same with food in the grocery store. It's going to cost more and more and more over time because more dollars are being printed per one of those items that you're trying to buy.
Mm-hmm. And to answer the question that you brought up about the Bitcoin halvings, there's only 32 Bitcoin halvings that will ever take place. The last halving will happen in 2140.
140. Okay, yeah, so about 100 years,
Yep.
120 some years. So
And
yeah, I mean, past our lifetime, which is crazy. I thought we were still going to be around, but I guess not.
nah. And the point with the halvings too is this is why you see so many people rushing into Bitcoin is it doesn't have to be more complicated than this point that I'm about to make. It doesn't have to be any more complicated than this. US dollar, they print more of it. It's inflationary. Value goes down over time. Bitcoin, fixed supply, 21 million tokens will ever be created. Deflationary. Because why? Well, burned supply, lost supply. Like over time, people are just going to lose and forget and not be able to ever recover their Bitcoin because they lose access to that wallet, etc. Burnt supply. So deflationary. Well, if you want a safe haven out of US dollar over the long run, what are you going to hold? The deflationary asset because it's going to go perma up and to the right in terms of value against USD.
Hmm.
So, no brainer. It really is a no brainer if you just keep it that simple. It's like you got to own some of it. You have
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, it's the like you said, just the straight up and to the right asset that we've seen the stock market do for the past 100 years, right? Same kind of new concept. It's going to be more volatile though, which is great for us because we want to get in at the volatility points, which eventually it's going to come to a point where it's not going to be as volatile. It's going to be that 5% a year, 7% a year, right? We're looking for 5 to 7% a week,
Yeah.
up and down, maybe even more sometimes. I mean, we're pretty down this week compared to where we were last week. I think it was probably like a 4 or 5% swing. So yeah, but I mean that's all I had regarding that today. Anything else you wanted to talk about? Anything
Yeah.
else on your list?
Yeah. One last point was something I was talking about with my buddy who's done incredibly well in crypto too. Was the point I was telling you about with the 401ks. So I want to make the point again. The S&P 500 and these index funds, people think that they're making money over the course of their lifetime. You're not actually, okay? Because inflation that we get, the inflation numbers that we get from the government, is based off of a basket of goods, eggs, milk, da da da. That's how they calculate inflation, which is a fugaz. It's fake. It's a political instrument. Inflation isn't how much eggs and milk and bread costs. That's not inflation. Inflation is the currency. What is it worth? It's that simple. The reason they do a basket of goods and pick and choose which ones they want to use and how they can manipulate the numbers is because they want to make it look good for the public, right? It's fucking bullshit. That's not inflation. That's not real inflation. Inflation is after COVID, them increasing the global monetary supply by 40%. So what was inflation that year? 40%. It wasn't 4%, 5% because your basket of goods are 6%. It was 40%. That's real inflation. That's what it actually was. Here's the supply, increase it by 40%. Okay, well your currency just inflated by 40%. So my point is that this S&P that's doing on average over 80 years, 10% a year, let's say, 12, 11% per year average return, you think that you're making money. You're not making money. You're still losing money. You're just losing less money than if it just was in a bank account. You're not outpacing inflation. So in a COVID year, 2020 or 2021, you would have had to have made 50, 60, 80% in the market to actually have made money that year. So they don't understand that. So the point I was making is you need to hold assets like a Bitcoin so that you can, number one, outperform inflation and actually preserve your wealth, because Bitcoin in and of itself is deflationary. So the point I'm making is you can't just put your money, all of your investments into a 401k and expect that somehow you're actually making money over time. No, the only reason your 401k value is going up is because due to pure inflation, the value went up. Like just due to pure inflation, the value had to go up. It's not that you outperformed or made money. You didn't make any money. No, it just only went up because the currency inflated. So you just got to understand that you're not preserving your wealth by doing that. You're not. It's just you're not. Inflation is higher than 10% a year. That's fake. It's not 2%. It's not 3%. It's more than that.
Yeah, it's important to understand how it all ties back to the treasury bonds too, because whatever they do with those, like if they buy back their own as well, then they could try to buy back down some inflation. But most of the time they don't do that. They're selling them. They're selling the bonds as much as they can, which is why you always see the United States debt chart going up, right? And the stock market continuing to go up. They have a strong correlation as well, is because government will continue to print and print and print, like Priam was saying. And the stock, like the S&P 500, if you look at it for the past 50 years, has been straight up and to the right, because of the strategy and the tactic that Priam was saying. It's just the pure value. These companies aren't worth 100 times more than they were 100 years ago. Coca-Cola still makes Coca-Cola, right? They still, Apple still makes Apple products like they did 15 years ago. It's just why is the value 20 times more? Well, it's because actual currency, each dollar, you're probably getting a 4 to 1, a 5 to 1 of what a dollar used to be, as opposed to what it is now. So that just all that trickles into the stock market, all that trickles down from the U.S. debt, from the treasury bonds to the market, and things continue to rise. Same with real estate. Even real estate is the sleeper one in all this. That's why the housing market crashed in 2008, because so many people were buying homes with money they didn't have. That was the ultimate fugaz. Pull the shades over their eyes, like, oh, you want $1 million house? You only make $20,000 a year? No problem. So that's why people defaulted on their loans, because they didn't have the money for these assets that they were buying. The 401k is a little bit different. You can buy into this asset that is fugaz and continues to go up, but real estate always continues to go up. That's why they say invest in real estate. It always goes up. Not true value. Like the house you bought in 1995 is still the same house you have now in 2025. Nothing's changed. The house isn't worth $1 million more than it was when you bought it. It's just, that's the currency. That's the
Yeah.
inflation. That's things you need to understand. So it's like there's so many different examples I could use to understand this concept, and that's why Bitcoin's so important, because it's deflationary. Right? This whatever you want to call it, piece of code inside the computer is that's what it is. That's the product, right? But it's going to continue to rise in value, just like everything else in this world, right? Your box of Cheerios in 1995 was probably 99 cents. Now your box of Cheerios is $4.99, right? So why? It's still a box of Cheerios, but it's the economics behind it and the math behind inflation.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. That's such a good point for people to understand. Your house isn't worth more. It's just the US dollar's worth less. That's why you get more of them for your house. Very important concept to understand.
Hmm.
It's the house is not worth more. The dollar's worth less. That's why you get more dollars for the same house. It's called inflation. So now you still want to hold the asset, right? Because it's not going to deflate like the dollar. That's why you hold the asset. But that's the point. You're not making money.
Exactly.
You're
That's the whole
just
point of holding the asset, is that it's not going to lose its value unless, hurricane comes through and rips your house down, then it's going to lose value. But that's why people invest in assets, because they're not inflationary tools like a dollar is.
right. Exactly. Yeah. Great point. All right, Harry. That's pretty much all I got. I got to go make some fucking kids. I gotta go make some kids now. So that motherfucker shuts his mouth.
We got the trolls working in the chat today. All right, yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. We'll be back next Wednesday for the Gentleman's Code.
Yeah, next. What's that? What day is that? Did you cut out? Oh no, you're there. Okay, cool. All right, let me Mr. Producer it. Mr. Producer. We got all them hoes, yeah, Mr. Producer. We got all them hoes.